What kind of toppings do you like to put on your pizza?
In Brazil, they put on some things that are a little bit weird, so I'm going to tell you about it. Today is the day. It is week 52.
Whoa, a whole year!
1 year of Around the World with Joshua and Alyssa. And if you have made it this far, congratulations to you.
We're clapping for you. We love you. Good job.
You are our #1 fans.
Yep, good job.
So thank you for watching. Thank you for coming all the way along. And once again, we have something very special for you. We have some new things to show you today that we have not done before. And I'm going to start off by telling you about the food in Brazil.
You got some pictures?
I do.
Phew.
So I'm going to start off by just a reminder. This is what Brazil looks like. And I was actually in that little green state up in the top right-hand corner.
By the blue ones?
Yep, by the blue and the orange and the red one. See it?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure you weren't looking at the top left-hand corner. I have not been over on that side. That is more on the Amazon side, which is not where I was. Correct.
Ecuador.
So I told you last week that I was going to tell you about the food, and look at that meat. It is so tasty.
And
I'm
pineapple?
going to that is not pineapple. That is
Yucca?
it's like yucca. Yes,
Okay.
if not the same thing. We actually have looked up what kind of root that is there, and we can't decide if it is the same thing with two different names that we know it by, or if it is two different things. So anyway, let's go on, and I'll tell you more about how that meat is done in a little while. This was one of the first things I ate while I was in Brazil. It was my first breakfast, and it was one of my favorite meals. I didn't realize it at the time how good it was and how much I would enjoy it later on. But that is tapioca. And so what looks like a tortilla there, it is like a tortilla, except it's thicker than a tortilla, maybe like twice the thickness. And it is like grainy type of texture on the outside, and inside it's like not quite gooey, but just kind of, and kind of sticky on the inside.
Is that like eggs on top? Or
Yeah.
more tapioca?
That is eggs. That's like fried eggs right there, and just roll it up. And I've had so tapioca is what that shell, that tortilla type thing is made out of, but tapioca is also the name of the whole food right here when you roll it up. And so that what there is with fried eggs, but I've also had it with like scrambled eggs and meat. And there's one carne de sal that we really like with salted meat. And you can have it with fried cheese and guava jam, and that one is really good if you like something that's kind of sweet and salty. All different ways to have it. It's basically your breakfast burrito, except this is much better.
So is it it must be tapioca flour then.
It is tapioca flour. Now these, I'm sure you guys can tell what these are. Yes. Now Alyssa knows this. In other countries, they don't refrigerate their eggs.
Nope.
You go into the store and they're sitting out like this, and you take them home and you put them on your shelf in your closet or in your kitchen, and you just leave it there until you use it. And I saw that, I was like, what? This is so weird. But in America, we take our eggs and we refrigerate them, and after you do that, you have to keep them refrigerated.
I think it has something to do with the washing. Like, if you wash the eggs, they have to get refrigerated faster, and so since they wash all of them stateside,
Okay.
they have to refrigerate them.
Probably. There, and in other countries we've been, you just put them on the shelf, and when you're ready to use them, you take them off.
It's great. Doesn't take up so much fridge space.
I know. It is great. And I'm sure you recognize those.
Yeah.
Look how big they are. Some of those
So
are
bright red.
some big watermelons. This is just one of those roadside farmer type people just selling their fruits. And you know what these are? That is a grasshopper.
No.
Oh, well, it is a grasshopper, but those are bananas. This was on the missionaries' property. They had some bananas growing.
Oh, there must be little bananas then.
No, those are normal-sized bananas.
Those are giant grasshoppers?
That's a giant grasshopper.
Ah!
That's why I took the pictures, because that grasshopper is about as long as the tip of my middle finger to the bottom of my palm.
That's a big grasshopper.
Yeah, they're huge. There's not a lot of them, but when you find them, it's pretty cool. Yep. The bananas are great. You can eat them when they're yellow and brown there, and they taste amazing. I don't like bananas here unless they're slightly green. And you probably recognize that.
Pizza.
That is pizza. They love pizza in Brazil. But their pizza's sometimes a little different. It doesn't always have as much sauce. And sometimes they have different toppings on there than we would have. And the most disgusting part is that they love to put ketchup and mayonnaise on their pizza as a condiment. Like, we would put on Parmesan cheese and like red chili flakes, pepper flakes. They put on ketchup and mayonnaise. So you go to the restaurant and that's what's on the table. Like, that's gross. And they love it. So I tried it once just to say I did, and I was right. It didn't taste good.
But they like it.
But they like it, so I guess it tastes good. And coconut milk straight from the coconut. Ugh, I love that so much. I could drink that all day, actually. And this is the pop that is, or the soda, if that's what you call it, that is from the region where I was. In fact, the factory was right near the city where I stayed most of my time, and you can't find this in most of the rest of the country of Brazil. It's like a regional type thing.
Interesting.
And that is called cashewina, because it is made from the fruit of the cashew. And you say, what? A cashew is a nut. Actually, the cashew is a fruit, and the cashew nut that we are familiar with here grows on the tip of the fruit. And so the cashewina pop, which is supposed to taste like the fruit, is so good. I like to bring some back when I come back from Brazil. I showed you this last week. This is the grape plantation we went to. And here's a look from below so you can see all the grapes hanging down. And here's a picture to give you an idea of how high they are off the ground.
Wow.
And so it's really nice because you can just walk along and grab it and pick it. You're not bending down and leaning over. It's just hanging right above you, and you just pluck it off. And the workers, they put them in those baskets, and then they take them over to a building where they package them all up. Those are great. You know what this is?
It's a citrus fruit of some sort?
Kind of. That is what we call passion fruit.
Oh yeah, but it's green.
Maracuja, or in Spanish you say maracuya. And yeah,
I've seen it yellow.
Yeah, and you pop it open on the inside and it's yellow on the inside. So these ones weren't quite ready to be harvested.
Yeah, no.
He did break one open for us to see and taste, and it was good. Little tart. But yeah, that is passion fruit. So they grew those up there too with the grapes. Now, this was a restaurant that Jamie and I went to. Well, we were there like every Sunday. The missionaries we were with kind of got into the mood of going to this place for Sunday lunch, so we were there like 4 or 5 times. And what it is all those pots have different foods, and you put them on your plate, and then you weigh it at the end, and you pay for however much it weighs. So you pay by the kilogram. And so if you load up on the meats and the cheeses, which are tasty, they're also the heaviest and therefore the most expensive. So it was always a joke when we went that whoever had the heaviest plate got to pay for everybody. And so we tried to see how much we could get without weighing too much. I usually was the one with the most, but near the end I got pretty good at getting what would be good and what I liked without going over. And here are some of the meats. You can see right there. And here is what makes the meat so good, is they skewer their meats and then just put them over an open fire and turn them like a rotisserie chicken, I guess. And that's what they do. They salt their meats, and they don't really put much else on for seasonings or spices or marinades or whatever, and they just cook them like that, and for whatever reason, that is really, really good. Much better than the grilling we do here. And of course, I have to end with the Brazilian Steakhouse. I had no idea what something like this was until I got there, but they bring the meat to your table on a big skewer and they cut it off right onto your plate, and it's fresh and hot, and you can get all sorts of meats and varieties. And if you live here in the States and have never been to a Brazilian Steakhouse here in the US, you're missing out.
They're so tasty.
You should probably skip going to all your fast food restaurants for about 4 months and save up money to go to one of these. You won't regret it, but it is great. The ones here in the US are pretty close. I would say they're pretty authentic because of the way they cook the meats and then bring them out. Here's the salad bar. Look at all that sushi. But you gotta be careful not to eat all the yummy sushi because you want to save room for the yummy meats. At a Brazilian steakhouse, you have these this paper on your table. If you have it on the green side, that means yes, keep bringing me meat. If it's on the red side, that means no, I need to pause or I am done. And so here, the ones we go to, they have like little fancier ways of doing it, but there it's often just as simple as a green and red circle. Next week, I'm going to tell you about the Bible college that I got to visit while I was down there, where the missionaries work. So you can look forward to that for next week.
Woo! Well, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Some of that reminds me a little bit of Peru, but it does seem a little bit different.
I just remembered one thing. There is one type of food that I was not good about getting pictures of this, but this is actually the most common thing, so I can't go on without telling you this. I just don't have a picture of it because it was like not that exciting. But the main meals there would be rice, and then you put beans on top of it, like brown, like kidney beans, not quite like that, but black beans, but they're brown. Like imagine pork and beans, the beans from that, whatever you call those. I don't even know.
I think they're kidney beans.
So you would put those on your rice, and then on top of your rice you would put salad, like shredded lettuce and some tomatoes, and then on top of that you'd have a little piece of meat, like this big, because meat's expensive. And that was your meal, and that would be like lunch and supper quite often. And I don't know why I don't have a picture of it, but I need to because that is actually one of the main staples, and I just showed you all the exciting stuff. So that wasn't good, but now you know.
That's like your sandwiches down there.
Basically. Yep, and it is good. It's just not as good as the other stuff I showed you.
Well, you want to hear some more story?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sounds good.
We have some more of our story about praying hide. Let's see if I can find a place to stick that. Okay, so our story last time kind of had a sad part to it, right? Because John's older brother, Edmund, died very suddenly. But John found that this was maybe something that God was going to teach him, right? Do you remember how John responded to his brother dying? So here's your hint. He said something about how he thought that God wanted him to be a missionary instead, and you got it. John had been studying to be a pastor, but he felt like after his brother died that God really wanted him to be a missionary since his brother wasn't there to be a missionary. So he went to school to study to be a missionary. We left off last time wondering where was God going to send John? What country was he going to end up in? Well, today I'm going to tell you John Hyde from Illinois got on a boat and was headed to the country of India. That was the country he felt that God was calling him to. Now, there's probably lots of the story that we're skipping over. Probably lots of him getting ready to leave and doing lots of other things like that. We're going to skip to the part here. He is on the boat and on his way to India. So Illinois to India is a long ways away. First of all, Illinois is in the middle of the U.S., so he's first got to get to a coast and then get on a boat for a long time. And he saw a lot of water. He just looked out over the side of the boat and saw water for days and days and days and days. But he was excited because he knew that India is where God wanted him to go, and he couldn't wait to get there and start meeting the people and learning the language and telling these people all about Jesus. And he was going to keep praying for them and praying that God would work in their hearts. Well, he finally arrived after lots of storms and crazy weather, and he kept praying, and even the captain of the ship talked to him because he was a good person to go to. If you're concerned about something, John would pray about it. That's just how he responded. Finally, he did make it to India. He was very excited to connect with some different missionaries and to get going right away on studying the language. And he studied and he studied and he studied, but he had a really, really hard time learning the language of the people in the area he was at in India. And we know that it might have been even harder for him because he had a hearing problem. So he probably didn't hear things correctly. So it made it even harder for him to learn the language. And he got really discouraged. John was so discouraged because he couldn't learn the language of the people. And if he couldn't learn the language of the people, how was he ever going to be able to tell them about how God loves them and how Jesus died for them? And he didn't give up praying, though. He just was really discouraged, and he thought maybe he should just go home. Maybe he shouldn't be here anymore. But he still kept spending time in God's Word, and he still kept spending time talking to God and praying. And God reassured him. God encouraged John, no, you should stay here and keep working. And John prayed, God, please help me to learn the language. Please help me. Please help my mouth to make the right sounds and for me to remember things and for the people to be able to understand what I'm saying. And after a while, God did answer his prayer, and John was able to speak, and the people were amazed. Wow, you can speak like us. This is so amazing. And they began to recognize, even before he could speak to them, they knew he prayed a lot. He would spend a lot of time at his house praying. He didn't go out into the middle of the street and just pray for everybody to hear. He would do it in his house. And just like earlier in our story, sometimes he would even pray all night long, just asking God for God to give him lots of great opportunities to tell people about Jesus. And the people knew that he prayed. And so they said, wow, he speaks our language. And they also said, and he speaks the language of heaven. That's pretty amazing too. And guess what? They came up with a nickname for him. They called him Praying Hyde. And Hyde was his last name. So Praying Hyde. He got this nickname just because he was always praying for people. Well, it was really hard for the people of India to be willing to give up everything that they knew and everything about their religion and their life to trust in Jesus. Everything about their life revolved around their religion of Hinduism. And John had seen so much of this, and it made his heart really sad, and he spent a lot of time praying and asking God, how could he reach these people? He saw that lots of people went to this special river. They wanted to go to this river of Ganges, and they would get in this river, and they thought that if they dipped in the water, it would wash away some of their sins. There was like lots of different stories about it, but the people thought if they got into this water, it would help wash away some of their sins and the gods would be happy. And they believed in so many gods. They had so many gods and idols in their houses, and they would pray all sorts of times during the day, and they would do all of these different things, but none of those gods heard them. And John knew that these people didn't have any hope for their future. When the people died, they did special things with the bodies, and they would all sit around and they would put them on these little altar things, and they would burn them and do all these different sacrifices, all these things. And every time John saw them, it just made his heart hurt even more for these people, because he realized they don't know. They don't understand who God is and what Jesus had done for them. Sometimes these people would pray up to 5 times a day, praying and calling out to their gods, to their idols in their house. They would do so many different things, and they would hurt themselves, but their gods never hurt them. Their gods were just made out of stone. And this made John pray and pray and pray. God, what can I do? How can these people begin to listen? People began to listen, a few at a time, when John was out preaching. But it was very difficult for them to turn from the things that they had learned, that they have lived with and learned, and their families had taught them for so long, to turn and to trust Jesus Christ as their Savior. You're going to have to come back next week and hear the next part of how John, or Praying Hyde, continues to help the people in India trust Jesus as their Savior.
Wow. Alrighty then. I will come back.
Oh, good.
Okay. Today we're going to tell you about a missionary who we went to school with.
Yeah.
And we have never highlighted her before, so we're going to tell
missionary.
you about our friend Lynette Circle, who is serving in Hungary. I did not actually get to know Lynette very well at school, but she was always a great person to be around, and she had a love for missions. I could tell that for a very long time, that was a passion of hers. And she is now serving the Lord in Hungary with Word of Life. And so there's a picture of her. And I asked her what life is like and where she lives specifically. And now I'm going to say a few things later about the Hungarian language as she shares it. But I don't know Hungarian.
Oops.
And I don't know how to pronounce these, so I will just pronounce it like an English person would. I live in a small village called Tualmus, which is about a 45-minute drive from Hungary's capital of Budapest. Now here is a picture from Lynette of Budapest.
That's beautiful.
I know, look at that architecture.
Whew.
And Hungary is known, I think, for a lot of their architecture. So someday we're gonna have to go take a look at it. I know some other missionaries there too as well. We asked Lynette, in what ways do you reach out to build relationship with people in your area? She said, I work with the local church ministries department of our ministry. In this, we are trying to assist and train churches in growing youth ministries within their churches. And I will make a few comments on this picture in a little bit, but this is kind of what she's connected with. This building here is where the ministry is. Some of the ways they do this are through teaching English, sports evangelism, and satellite camps, where they partner with local churches to provide 3 to 5 days of day camp to the children in the community. She says, personally, I have also joined a local ping pong club that has been a great way to get connected with my neighbors and others in my community. This is a castle on the property that Word of Life owns. And this building here, students and staff will eat there, but it also houses the laundry, and guests will stay there, and the staff have offices there.
That's cool.
And so let's see. There we go. In the 1980s, Word of Life was able to hold a youth camp in Hungary. And this was the first camp that Word of Life had ever held in a communist country.
Oh, wow.
In 1989, God allowed Word of Life to lease the current property that they now have from a then communist government, which is pretty incredible. The regulations were to bring the camp property up to proper standards, and that the camp would give 400 Hungarian youth the opportunity to come to camp at no charge. The joke is that this is the first camp property that ever came with campers included. That is really funny. The first camp was held on this property in 1990, and in 2002, Word of Life was able to purchase the property. And so this property had formerly been known as a communist youth camp. Isn't that cool that now it's a camp for
That's cool. God can
the
use
gospel? It is so neat to see how God has redeemed this property for His glory. Their property has about 80 acres of land with this castle that you see here, walking paths, sports fields, rare trees, 2 lakes, and many other buildings that are used as dorms and classroom buildings. I asked her, what is one of the most unique things about Hungary? And she said that would be the language. Hungarian is a very complex language that only shares similarities to Finnish and Estonian. And I don't even know what that would even be close to. There are 44 letters in the alphabet.
Ooh.
Each letter makes one and only one sound. On one hand, that kind of sounds like it would be nice. And on the other hand, that's a lot of
sounds.
But I don't know. I really don't know. There are a lot of endings that are added onto words, so something that may be a sentence in English is one long word in Hungarian. For example, the phrase "with my friends" turns into "baratimol," or something like that.
Wow.
I don't even know.
One word. That is pretty complex.
The public transportation system, and I know I don't have a picture of the public transportation here, so I'm just showing you some other pretty pictures in Hungary. The public transportation system is very good. Many people take public transportation, even in rural areas, rather than driving a personal car.
Nice.
Along with their local church ministries, they have a summer camp ministry there and an international Bible school. And this picture here is graduation from the first year that Lynette was there.
Wow.
Wouldn't it be cool having your graduation picture with that in the background?
Pretty dramatic.
She says they have a very multicultural environment, especially during the school year. Within their student body, they may have from 40 to 80 students depending on the year, and they often have students from 12 to 16 different countries. Their Bible classes are taught in both English and Hungarian. Okay, that makes sense then how they could have students from 12 to 16 different countries. They don't all have to learn Hungarian, but a lot of people already know English. Let's see. The goal of Word of Life is to partner with local churches in ministry. They do this by ministering to and training church members in a variety of ways to minister to the youth in their community, provide evangelistic events, and strengthening the future generations of church members through their Bible Institute. As for Prairie Quest, Lynette says, please pray as I've been back in the States since late November to address various health issues. I thought I was nearing the end of this health journey, but I just found out this past week that I will need shoulder surgery, which will postpone my return to Hungary by several months. And that is got to be really disappointing because that's where her heart is. That's what she wants to do. And especially when you're not expecting something that significant for an operation, that's a big thing. So pray for her in that area. As for the ministry there, pray for Word of Life as they navigate ministry during COVID. They are blessed to have 40 international students studying at the Bible Institute this year and are planning for a full summer of camps.
Cool.
Please pray that we are able to do this with manageable COVID restrictions and also that our U.S. volunteer groups will be able to come as well. Pray for the morale, especially for our staff and missionaries, as this has been a very trying year. Pray for the youth of Hungary that their hearts and minds would be prepared to hear the message of salvation through Christ alone, because many in Hungary have never heard a clear presentation of the gospel. I asked, what is something that people never ask but you wish they would? She said, how can we be involved? She wishes that more people would ask that question. Not just how can I give money, but how can I be involved in the ministry? She said, I think often people don't realize how much ministry like to receive two-way communication when they send out their ministry updates.
Oh, missionaries like to hear from people that they send their updates to.
And most people don't know that.
It's true.
If you ever have any questions for missionary or God puts it in your heart to let them know you are praying for them, do it. It is always appreciated. And we told you a few weeks ago you could write them a card, but you could do something as simple as responding to an email. Ask them some questions and tell them what your life is like. I asked if there's anything else interesting that people might like to hear about. She says ministry in Hungary has many opportunities for missions trips of many kinds. If one person wants to come, or a larger group, if you're older, if you're younger, there are ways to serve. In the past, we've had missions groups come and help with camps like English, sports, soccer, American football, volleyball, baseball, softball, frisbee golf, basketball, art, people who do maintenance, kitchen, housekeeping help. Really,
wow.
you can go.
Anything.
Whoever you are, you could probably fit in somewhere, it sounds like. There's satellite camps. You can help with those. They're day camps with local churches around Hungary. Construction. Or if you just want to come and see the ministry, she said you can do that as well.
That's pretty cool.
So that is Lynette's ministry with Word of Life in Hungary. And like we said, pray for her as she really wants to go back and cannot right now and has to get shoulder surgery first and recover from that. And also pray for them as they are planning to move ahead with camps and everything this summer.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So pray that that would happen, that there wouldn't be anything that would restrict them from that, and they'd be able to figure out the best way to do it with the different COVID things and give the gospel to people who have never heard it before.
Yep. Hopefully you found our hidden object today and you enjoyed the next part of our story. Make sure you come back next week and you can hear the next part. And we'll see you then.
And more about Brazil.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.